Hey, good morning, everyone. Josh's Severe Weather. Happy Wednesday to you. Hump Day, as some of you may call it. I've got a lot to talk about in the tropics, and I'm also going to cover some severe weather and flood threats for portions of the central and eastern United States. It's a lot of info. When you see how many tabs I have open, you'll see I keep tabs on everything, but I'm not going to have a lot of time to spend on details. So if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave those here. Just my only request is, while we all want to be critical and try to break apart a forecast, just let's try to keep it civil, because I know not everybody is going to agree with everything they hear, and I completely respect that. But I would ask that you could be respectful to me as well. I had to say this because we've had a few folks in the past who have not been. So anyway, that's just my only request. Otherwise, you're just not really helping any kind of situation. So anyway, let me share my screen with you. We'll get here to what we're watching. Tropical Storm Dawn has been a weird one to figure out, but making an anticyclonic loop over the open waters of the North Atlantic. Unfortunately, not a threat to land. Even looks like it's going to pass safely east of Newfoundland here over the weekend. We are watching another area, though. There's a monsoonal trough with areas of showers and storms forming between Africa and halfway through the islands. And yesterday I had a video talking about this being a potential threat. I never like to go back on that area, back on a forecast, but trends right now are not as bullish on this as becoming a threat. But it is still an area we're going to be watching nonetheless. And until it forms or doesn't form, nobody can say for certain. So we're going to keep an eye on it. But right now in the United States, I don't think it's going to be anything to really fret about at this point. But if you are in the islands, you're going to want to keep an eye on what may develop here. This is Dawn, tropical storm over the central Atlantic. Winds are 40 miles per hour, so a minimal tropical storm, and currently moving off to the south. It's going to be making a loop anticyclonically or clockwise. And that's really all we have. In the Pacific, we do have one area that may slowly develop, but it's no threat to land. And then in Hawaii, we've got Tropical Storm Calvin, which did strengthen last night and now is starting to weaken again as it passes just by to the south of the big island of Hawaii. We do have a tropical storm warning in effect. And then we do have something to watch in the Western Pacific as well. The official forecast issued yesterday shows there is a 40% or higher chance of tropical development here over the central Atlantic. So it is still a possibility, even though the once threatening GFS model has not really been nearly as bullish over the last few runs. It's still out there, and it's still something we're going to watch. Regardless, we're going to have heavier rainfall moving into the islands here next week, and then maybe moving up towards the Bahamas and Florida here for the beginning of August. We also have an area of greater concern potentially over the Western Pacific, where waters are hot and surface pressures are expected to drop, and we're likely going to have a stronger tropical system, probably a typhoon here later on this week and especially into next week. So tropics are heating up, but we don't have as much certainty as we'd like to see this far out. This is a closer look at the tropics, and you can see nothing of any immediate concern. We do have a wave and an upper low bringing heavy showers to the Cayman Islands and Cuba, but nothing that will develop. We've got a front off the East Coast and another complex of storms moving through the Tennessee Valley. Pretty quiet over the central Atlantic at this point. The Pacific, not super busy. We do have an area we're watching, but it does not look super organized. So all in all, not super busy here in the tropics. Now, over the eastern Atlantic, we do have a monsoonal trough here, some wind shears you can see out of the southwest. That is likely keeping anything from forming, but this is the wave that we're going to keep an eye on, and then the one behind it as well. One of these two looks like it may try to develop into a lower end system, probably a depression, maybe a tropical storm, but until that happens, all we're going to really do is guess at models which don't really have a full handle on everything that's going on. I like to look at models, but I also like to look at trends. And I will say the trend is not as bullish on this. So we may get by without a system here in the next week or so. Certainly that's a possibility. But the next name on the list is Emily. Now, this is Tropical Storm Dawn, still getting some shear off from the north. Doesn't look super organized, but it is holding its own and may intensify some. These are the Azores. Bermuda's off just to the west of this. You can see there's an upper low south of it. Big trough to the north, and it's kind of getting squeezed on both sides, but it's in between everything. So there is enough thunderstorm development for this to continue to be classified as a tropical storm. Now, here is the forecast track. You'll see it's predicted to remain a tropical storm through the weekend and then weaken to a remnant low early next week. Now the window takes it well east of Newfoundland. It's likely going to make a a hard right turn. Waters are a little bit warmer in here if it comes a little farther west, so it may strengthen some, but it is unlikely to become a hurricane, maybe a moderate tropical storm, maybe a higher end tropical storm if it goes a little farther west, due to the fact that waters are a bit warmer in this area than they are over here. But fish storm at this point, nothing to really be concerned with. A pretty good agreement on the models. This is Newfoundland. Everything's going to stay off to its east next week. Intensity forecast overall shows some modest strengthening beginning in the next 24 hours. Only one model takes it just to category 1, but most likely it stays a tropical storm and then begins to weaken Sunday into next Monday. Here's Tropical Storm Calvin, and the center of the storm is actually passing by to the south of Hawaii. All the thunderstorms and all the nasty rain and wind are impacting Hawaii, though, at this point. So it's a disorganized system. It burst up to 60 miles per hour yesterday, now down to 50. The center is actually down in here, and all the storms are off to the east. And that indicates that the storm is getting sheared pretty significantly. Here's a look at radar from the Big Island, and you can see the center is actually down in here. I could draw that for you. So it's actually not officially made landfall. It looked like yesterday it was going to try to come up here, but instead it's moved in this direction. However, all the business with this storm is on the northeast side, so we are seeing very heavy rain beginning to move onto the Big Island, likely some wind gusts over 50 miles per hour, as we do have some higher elevations in here. So a nasty day on the Big Island is expected. As of this video, it's almost the middle of the night. So we're seeing squally weather, and fortunately not a huge deal for Hawaii, but there will be heavy rain and potentially some flooding out of this system as it continues to track westward. So this was once a category 3 hurricane in the East Pacific, now a tropical storm with 50 mile per hour winds, expected to gradually weaken and dissipate by the time we get to the end of this week. Even though waters are warm down in here, wind shear is expected to strengthen, and that is going to blow the storms away from the center and eventually lead to a remnant low pressure system. So the worst of the weather is going to be on the Big Island. The rest of the Hawaiian Islands will just see some showers out of this. Intensity forecast here, you can see it may even be a depression by tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow night. The European model does show wind gusts may get over 50 to 60 miles per hour here on the southern tip of the Big Island, as well as on the volcanoes. Most of the rest of the islands are looking at wind gusts of 30 to 40 miles per hour. So marginal tropical storm conditions, but not widespread. And then rain is going to be heavy on the southern and eastern portion of the island, perhaps up to 6 inches of rain here through about this time tomorrow. Now let's shift gears and look at our next potential system. GFS ensembles here show potentially some development. It's going to be a low-end system at this point, and not a lot of certainty in what happens, but a low-end system, maybe a tropical storm by the time we get to about next Sunday night and Monday, moving towards the islands. But notice that overall the trend has been weaker and farther south. So at this point, we do not have the big storm that the GFS is showing anymore in this area. We're seeing something weak that may survive and move towards the Caribbean or may dissipate altogether, and then nothing really behind it at this point. So not really a threat at this point, just something we're watching. I do think rainfall goes up for the Caribbean islands. This is dawn. These are low pressure systems that form near the coast on our front. Unlikely to become anything tropical, but we're going to watch. It is the heart of the Atlantic season starting here soon, and water temperatures are very warm, but at this point, nothing more than probably just more rain, unfortunately, and stronger storms for the eastern part of the country. And then on the Pacific side, you can see here some monsoonal low pressures showing up on some ensembles. But right now, we don't see a longer track system that looks like it's going to be a threat to the U.S. So a couple days ago, the GFS false started and jumped the gun. I did talk about it and addressed it. I didn't say to worry about it at this point. All we know is that when the GFS model goes beyond 7-8 days and starts showing things, it's really not to be trusted. We can talk about it. I have no problem mentioning it, showing you what may be making the rounds on social media. But at the same time, I tell people, let's just not freak out at this point until something actually does form. Then we're just looking at fantasy land with the model. So wanted you guys to know that. The European model does show about a 40% chance that something may develop on its ensembles here, likely going through the center of the islands if it does. And the time frame for that is probably next Tuesday. So we got about 6 or 7 days. And then you notice it loses that possibility when it gets into the Western Caribbean. This is interesting to watch here. I don't know if we have anything tropical or subtropical off the East Coast, but we'll keep an eye on it. This, of course, is Tropical Storm Dawn. Notice that no purple shows up on Newfoundland, so we're in pretty good shape. So really, we have Dawn and then potentially a depression or maybe a low-end Tropical Storm Emily, with the best chance of development coming here in a few days, maybe over the weekend into the first part of next week. But it's riding low and it's going to hit the graveyard in the Caribbean. So the GFS model does show some lower pressure in here, but it no longer shows any major threat. You can kind of see this low riding very low to the south this time next week. And maybe it's got a window to develop into a lower end tropical storm down in here. But no longer are we seeing any of these stronger solutions up in here. We'll wait and see what this model shows, but I think it's not really going to show up. Now on the Pacific side of things, we do have an invest to watch, and this could be a threat to a lot of folks. Right now, we are not seeing organization with it. However, models do show that it's going to drift north and potentially intensify pretty quickly here later this week to the east of Luzon in the Philippines. And the models that do show it take it farther into the South China Sea and towards mainland China, just like the last one. But there's not a lot of agreement. You can see ensembles all show intensification. So we do have likely a typhoon, but we don't know exactly if it's going to hit Taiwan or go over the northern Philippines or even recurve towards Korea and Southwest Japan. Still way too soon to see that at this point. So this is not something to really have a good handle on just yet until it does in fact form. The tropical model here, the HAFS, shows very quick intensification starting Friday into a typhoon, and then the pressure drops very quickly east of the Philippines. We have a 938 millibar, likely category 3 or 4 typhoon, maybe even as low as 932 millibars, which is a high-end category 4. But notice how it takes it to the east of Luzon and then stalls it, and maybe we have a northward jog. So we're going to have time to watch and prepare. The next name on the list is Doc Surrey. However, the Philippines will use a different name, that's Igay, for our next cyclone. So I don't make up the names, but I think it's kind of interesting to see how they do all that. All right, we'll look at the U.S. and very hot again in the Southwest today, very hot across parts of the South Central states, hot across Florida. And then we've got flooding and potential severe weather continuing here over the midsection of the country, some smoke as well over parts of New England. And we had one big complex move through the Tennessee Valley yesterday, another one behind it moving through Kentucky and western Tennessee today. All this is going to expand eastward towards the Carolinas, southward towards Alabama and Georgia. Another complex up and over it, over the Dakotas that we're keeping an eye on. And you can see a cyclone over Manitoba and Saskatchewan. That is going to fuel more storms in the northern plains today. And we do have a slight risk for severe weather from Kansas up to Lake Superior into western Wisconsin. 2% chance for some tornadoes here, 15% chance for severe hail, a wind, and maybe some large hail across Nebraska, Minnesota, and Wisconsin towards the end of the day and into the evening. Marginal risk from Colorado all the way to the mid-Atlantic states as multiple complexes move through here. I think there will be severe weather. There'll also be a flood threat as well. Tomorrow, slight risk in 3 different areas. This is the system moving through the northern plains today. It'll be in the Great Lakes and Ohio Valley tomorrow. This is what's moving into Tennessee, could produce some severe weather in the Carolinas. And again, we'll see severe weather over portions of the southern and central plains. Marginal risk a little farther south and east as we have a slow moving front, multiple complexes moving through. This could get upgraded to a slight risk in parts of Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, maybe even Arkansas. So I would not be shocked if this got upgraded. We'll also keep an eye on things in the Carolinas into the Northeast, and of course in our usual places in the high plains. Flood threat is moderate today over western Kentucky and moving towards middle Tennessee. Places like Paris and Puryear are going to have a moderate risk of flooding today. Significant amounts of rain, maybe over 5 inches. Also very heavy rain moving into southeastern Virginia today. Same deal for tomorrow. Same places are going to be under the gun for locally some flash flooding. As we get to Friday, we continue to see active weather in the Appalachian region as well as in the Central Plains. Over the weekend, this is going to push south and east. We'll dry out finally in this area, but we have a threat for localized flooding along the Gulf states and in the monsoon region of the Southwest. So as hot as it is in the Southwest, we could have some relief coming from thunderstorms, as we do have somewhat of a monsoon season. It's gotten kind of a late start, but it is there. As you'll see, rainfall over the next several days could be on the high side here, over 3 to 4 inches over the Central Plains. And of course, we're going to take a look here farther east. Texas, not going to see much rain out of this. Kentucky, downstate Illinois, and Tennessee are. As we get through the end of the week, we have likely a 3 to 6 inch area of rain extending from near Cape Girardeau in downstate Illinois, right through middle Tennessee, all the way down to the Cumberland Gap and into western North Carolina. Places like Robbinsville and Murphy could see amounts over 3 inches of rain. And let me take you into the Carolinas and show you that we've got a lot of rain expected here in eastern North Carolina, as well as southeast Virginia, especially over the next 3 days, but coming to an end by the time we get over to the weekend. Real quick, here's a look at the weather in the Northeast. Whoops, let me zip that back for you. And you can see drying out for the most part today, a few scattered showers and storms. Bigger weather moves into the area tomorrow afternoon and evening, with more flash flooding possible with any of these storms. Here's a look at the south, and we are going to continue to watch storms tracking through portions of the mid-south. You can see a severe thunderstorm watch till 10 in the morning here from eastern parts of Missouri down through western and middle Tennessee. Flash flood warnings and a flash flood emergency off to the west of Mayfield. Places like Priorsburg, we've had a lot of rainfall, amounts over 5-6 inches, and that is slowly expanding east, but another round of storms moving through. We'll have a lot of lightning and a lot of rain, so dangerous travel conditions are possible across this region here. You can see that's going to move south and east. More storms fire up later on today in the east. We get more storms moving through the same place here around this time tomorrow morning, moving into the Carolinas in the afternoon. There could be some severe weather here, and Friday will still potentially be active across parts of this region. It'll be hot across the south, 98 in Jacksonville, 99 a record high in Baton Rouge, 101 in Shreveport today. More records are likely to fall in parts of Texas and the southwest. 105 today in Dallas, 100 in Corpus Christi, 109 in El Paso, 112 in Tucson. The storms are going to keep us a little cooler here in the upper Midwest, and the southwest remains very hot. 123 in Death Valley, 116 in Phoenix will be a record high. Even 90s in the higher elevations in northern Arizona, 111 in Vegas. So you couldn't pay me to live in that kind of a climate. I will very much take my 95 in Raleigh, and that's that, although it is humid. So thank you all so much for your time today. Really hope you have a wonderful day. Please share with your friends. And if you're a first-time viewer, I'm going to ask you if you could subscribe to my channel. I also have a members only. It's 33 cents a day. We're going to give you guys a little bit more priority response to your comments. You can chat with each other, and I'm happy to help out and offer forecasting advice. Maybe you have a trip planned. You're going to be the people that I'm going to turn to for that. So I want to thank you all for your time today. As a Christian man, I want to give all the glory to God, who has given me the gift to do this every day, the drive to continue to push through day after day of what can be rough weather. And it's my calling just to let you all know that God is working in my life. He's given his son, Jesus Christ, to die for me. And I need to share that with you every day today. Even if you don't believe it, I certainly do. And I wanted to share that with you. I read a verse earlier today, Hebrews 13:6, so that we may boldly say, the Lord is my helper, and I will not fear that man shall do unto me. Remember them which have the rule over you, who have spoken unto you the word of God, whose faith follow, considering the end of their conversation. Jesus Christ, the same yesterday and today and forever. When I opted to become a Christian, I know the gift was there for me, but I didn't really necessarily believe it right away. And I know a lot of folks don't believe it. I just realized that I was in a spot where I was vulnerable. I did not know what my future was going to be, and I felt very marginalized and cast out. Well, Jesus Christ himself did as well. He chose to become an outsider and to die for us on the cross for our salvation, so that that weakest person, or the person that's most vulnerable, no longer could be viewed as an outcast, but as part of God's family. And God has a huge family. We were all created by him. However, a lot of folks have decided that they are not going to believe that. And you know what? I'm not going to judge. That is not where I am. But that day is going to come for you where you will be judged, and eternally you'll be either given the holy kingdom of God as a Christ believer, or you won't. And I know for me, I didn't want to gamble on that. I just wanted to say, look, if this is this, then I'm going to believe so. And I'm going to, prove my worth to God, although God has already made me worthy. God is no respecter of persons. Because he sent Christ to die for us, we can live eternally. And, it doesn't really matter how successful we are here on earth. What really matters in the end is that we have made that choice to accept the gift of Jesus Christ as our Savior. I just wanted to share that good news with you because that is an amazing thing to me, amazing thing to a lot of other fellow believers. And those of you who don't believe, look, I'm just going to continue to pray for you because I believe if just one person heard that message today and maybe is going to think about it, then God is working through you. And all I'm really doing is just stating my testimony. So I hope you all have a blessed day. I'm happy to pray for you. And if you could pray for me as well, I very much appreciate that. We will chat some more tomorrow morning. Have a blessed day. Take care.